Ah yes, the wonderbolts. Equestria's elite flying squad, here to patrol the skies and keep everyone safe. Where would we be without them?
Well, actually, probably exactly where you are right now, because what do the wonderbolts actually do? I've got my theories, so let's go and take a look at them.
How did you get into my house?
So, I've been giving the wonderbolts some thought. Now, that isn't necessarily uncommon for me. We are all at a flight school after all, but usually it's just about other ponies wanting advice on how to join the bolts and stuff like that. But recently I started thinking about the wonderbolts a little more in depth. Dangerous, I know, because what are the wonderbolts really? A lot of ponies, including... Wait, we're doing costume changes now? Why didn't anyone tell me about this? Since when do we even have the budget for that? Oh well, it looks quite nice. I'm not complaining. Anyway, like I was saying, a lot of ponies, including myself when I was a colt, seem to think the wonderbolts are this group of amazing heroes that regularly save Equestria from danger, similar to what the main six do in the show. But I also know that some of them see them as more of a military organization, similar to what we have with the Air Force, or as the prime weather control team within Equestria. And others just see them as a famous aerial acrobatics group. Now, all of these four seem like reasonable options at first, so let's start at the very beginning. We know that the wonderbolts originate from the aerial part of the EUP Guard, which was led by General Firefly at the time. So that's it then? The wonderbolts are military, end of story, right? Well, Lumin from 5 seconds ago, you would be right if it weren't for one slight thing. The EUP Guard was originally created by Princess Celestia right after Nightmare Moon's original banishment. That was over 1,000 years ago, and I'm sure things have changed plenty since then. Going back to more recent events, thanks to the Wonderbolt Academy, we get a pretty in-depth view of what the bolts consider to be important. There is a lot to say about this, but I think it boils down to the following points: quick thinking, endurance, and teamwork. As far as actual training goes, we see them perform obstacle courses, cloud-busting drills, and later on also flying in formation. Unfortunately, none of this really rules out any of the options we have so far. The team having a reserves list does seem interesting to me. I would assume if they were a military or government-funded team of sorts, they wouldn't have a public reserves list in the way we see the wonderbolts have. Instead, I imagine it would be more like an internal thing where they keep an eye on recruits or trainees that show the most potential, and then invite them in when needed. Then again, the wonderbolts are much more public and well-known than any elite military squad is over here, but I was still added as a point of interest in the weather and aerobatics team. Now let's take a look at this apparent level of status the wonderbolts get. We see them as judges at the Young Flyers competition or attending fancy events like the Grand Galloping Gala. They also seem to do their own performance tours, like we see in Newbie Dash, or even something as small as a flyover for Scootaloo's parents during the Last Crusade, even going as far as to organize their own air shows like the Wonderbolts Derby. Now, I'm no expert by any means, I just pretend to be, but none of this gives me any militaristic vibes. Unless, of course, we're talking about some private military agency that needs to organize and perform their own events to earn money because they're not government funded, but we know this isn't the case because the Wonderbolts were originally created by Princess Celestia, but even if it were, that wouldn't explain their status compared to the actual Royal Guards, for example, like how we see at the gala that the Wonderbolts have their own little VIP area, whereas no one else seems to get any special kind of treatment. So then, the Wonderbolts are a flying team? Case closed? Well, once again, not entirely. While there are some good arguments for the bolts being just an aerial acrobatics team, there are also definitely some arguments for the more military side of things too that we haven't gone over yet. For example, the ranks we see within the Wonderbolts. There are characters like General Firefly, Admiral Fairweather, and of course Captain Spitfire. They seem to follow military ranks quite closely, which I guess I could also see being used for the weather team. While the rank of captain makes sense to me for both a military and a team of performers, the others, not so much. Same goes with Spitfire's appearance in Hurricane Fluttershy. The job of getting water to Cloudsdale seems to be an official one of sorts, especially since they have their own cartoony information video about it. It wouldn't make sense to me to have this seemingly very important operation to be overseen by the captain of an aerobatics team, as opposed to a military leader or expert weather pony. Looking at the board now, there seem to be some valid arguments for most of the options, which basically means we haven't really gotten anywhere so far. So let's dig in a little bit further and start looking at their We all know about the running joke that we never really see the Wonderbolts succeed at anything, but how true really is that? And more importantly, is there anything we do see them excel at? Let's go over some of their appearances and see how they perform. Rainbow Dash first mentions
the Wonderbolts
in the very first episode of the show, but the first time we actually see them is during the Best Young Flyers speech. In this episode, we see them dive after Rarity after her wings burn up and she falls out of the sky. They fail and Dash swoops in and saves them all. However, I think that this, together for example with their appearance during the final battle in the ending of the end, doesn't really count towards any of our options in particular. Military, weather team, or performers, all of them would have tried to save Rarity, and since every single character appears in the final battle, that doesn't really rule out any options either. During the episode Sweet and Elite, we see a group of Wonderbolts participate in the Wonderbolts Derby in Canterlot. Unless this was used as a show of military power, which I doubt, this leans more to an aerobatics team for me. In Secret of My Excess, you know, that one episode we all tried forgetting about where Spike gets too greedy and becomes huge, and then it's never ever mentioned again. We see the Wonderbolts try, and fail, to try and stop Spike from existing, I guess? If only they were successful. If the Wonderbolts were purely performers or a weather squad, I doubt they'd be called to action here. During Marks and Recreation, the episode where the CMC set up their Cutie Mark Day camp, we see Thunderlane practice with the other Wonderbolts for something called the Ponyville Extravaganza Show. We also see them put on a show during Parental Glidance, where they also appear to hold a signing session afterwards. I think we can move both of these to the aerobatics team without much further explanation. Also, thanks to Mayo Wishes for pointing out that I completely butchered the name of this episode last video. I could make a whole separate video of why Parental Glidance teaches a really bad lesson, and why her parents are making Rainbow Dash's life so much worse. The Wonderbolts also make a brief appearance during the movie, where they show up during Rainbow Dash's part in
We got this. You got this. We got this together.
Also, fun fact, this is the only scene in all of Friendship is Magic that I could find where we actually see the Wonderbolts bursting clouds. The only other time we even hear it is a mention of Rainbow Dash when she uses it as an excuse to not be able to chaperone the CMC during Growing Up is Hard to Do. And lastly, in the beginning of the end, we see the Wonderbolts being part of King Sombra's brainwashed army. We know the Wonderbolts are mostly based out of their headquarters at the Academy, so I don't see any reason for them to be in Canterlot at that moment, unless they were called upon to protect the city, and once again failed. I think after all of that, we have enough arguments and examples to go to our final chapter. Fucking hell, thank you! I think we can eliminate two options right away. The fact that the Wonderbolts are generally that unsuccessful with their rescue attempts, and one of the main six usually has to come in clutch, fully eliminates the option of heroes for me. I mean, they lost to Spike. If anything, the title of heroes should be given to the main six. We also just don't see enough weather control from the bolts for me to justify it as a serious option. We know they practice for it, and that they are seemingly called in if things get out of hand or go wrong, but it doesn't feel like cloud busting is their main focus. When I started working on this video, I thought the answer would be clear. The Wonderbolts are an aerobatics group, right? All the shows they perform and the fame they get made it seem like the answer would be crystal clear. But then we have the points for the military, especially the ranks and attempts at protection we see them do. They just don't fit with the team of performers for me, so much so that it kind of made me lean more towards the military option as the video went on. In the end though, I think there is only one final conclusion we can come to. It's actually none of the options we discussed before. The Wonderbolts were created by Princess Celestia just to serve as her personal eye candy at all those boring fancy events she always has to attend. I mean, come on, just look at him! I guess additionally they serve as great thirst traps for bronies. Not that I'd know anything about that, of course. In all seriousness though, I'd say the Wonderbolts are primarily a famous aerobatics team, but one that is still at least partially controlled by Princess Celestia, who can assign the bolts to protective or offensive duties when necessary.
How are you back? I told you to get
Oh
out.
shit, time